Aloha, everyone. Welcome to the Aloha Friday show. My name is Kamaka Brown. Welcome, welcome. And sitting alongside me virtually, because I am here on the West Coast, on the continent, and our guest is developer and CEO, president of the Avalon Group, Christine Camp. Good morning, Christine.
Good morning.
We want to say mahalo for coming on this morning. We know it's about 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning. It's about 9 o'clock over there, but I think you were an early riser, huh, to get your day started.
Yes, um, unfortunately or fortunately, a lot of things that I need to do in the morning. So I'm usually up by 5 in the morning.
I should say, as a shaker, you've been described as a shaker and a mover. So shakers and movers get up early and they start shaking and moving.
Early bird gets the worm.
Yeah.
I'm a true believer in that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, getting Ethan ready for the day too, right? He's
Yeah, my 16-year-old teenager, he has school and traffic and all that, so that's important. But also because a lot we deal with a lot of people from the states, our key investors and lenders
yeah.
are in the mainland.
Hmm. Every time I go back home, I'm always will visit family and friends, and of course locals. We love our island food. So I'm jumping on the plane. I'm catching the red eye here, Christine. I get to Honolulu Airport. I get in my car and I give you a call. I go, Christine. Let's meet for lunch, and you go. I just so happen to have a little bit of time, Kamaka, for a quick lunch. Where are we gonna go eat, have lunch?
Oh, Lilia
Yeah,
Bakery.
Lily
I
Big.
love that place. Breakfast, brunch, or lunch. Right
Yeah.
on minutes, my favorite place.
So that is a quite a popular place as well. The only thing is one thing I was disappointed when I was there. You pass all the baked goods, right? You see all the wonderful pastries. I said, "Can I have a slice of?" And they said, "Oh no, we'll only sell the whole pie." And I
The
went,
pie,
"Oh,
yeah.
I said,
You're supposed to grab it and go.
I guess, right?" So I went, "Oh, I just want a slice." I'm watching my girlish figure, and she laughed, like that. So, if I would have any suggestion to Lilia Bakery, hey, you guys, slice up them pies because we have folks who like to have just a little bit of dessert, but it is a great place to go hang
I will
out.
tell Peter Kim that.
Yes, tell him.
Yeah.
That is so much fun to go. We used to go to the old one in Liliha, right? The original one, in which you
It's still
stand
there.
out. It's still there, yeah. And you stand outside, and you watch the people that are sitting at the counter, and you stare really good because hopefully they will know that you're waiting, and they hurry up and eat and leave. Yeah. So 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 we always
Oh,
have
you're gonna
fun
be
there.
hungry. Only with
Yeah.
the butter roll with the jelly.
Oh my goodness, right? They have
So
the
not
great.
good for you, but so delicious.
Here we have Marty Burns. Marty Burns is jumping in. He says, "Aloha Friday." Marty Marty has a pop-up bakery that's called Broke the Mount Bakery here, and he does wonderful ube things. He does lilikoi mochi,
Mm.
ube cookies, and just talking about him, I already gained weight here. So thank you, Marty. And oh, Marty is saying yes, Liliha Bakery, Cocoa Puffs. Yes, Marty.
Puffs.
Those are the best. Those are the best. And Kay Bennett, coming from the West Wing of the Holly, she's saying, "Haole Pauhana Day, Friday." Yes, 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 yes. So, Christine, you have an amazing, you've gone on an amazing journey. Your family moved from Korea, from South Korea. You were barely 10 years old with your sisters. Sad, not too long after you were here, your dad passed away. So your mom, working very, very hard, wanted the best for her daughters, and you learned some hard lessons along the way that carried you now into where you are here. And so, what is the driving force that lessons you've learned, pretty much, from low income and living, just pretty much hand to mouth, truly, and here you are here. So you've not forgotten that. What lessons do you take into your life and into your business today?
I think that most important is that don't be afraid of failure, because failure is another step towards success. And I learned that from my mother, who went through. I mean, you just described my life, but just think about a young mother in a new country who speak very little English, with very little education, with kids to feed, and she tried whatever she could, and she failed more often than she succeeded. But her desire to not give up so that she could provide for her kids just showed me that a failure was not the end of everything.
Hmm.
And so when you have that kind of background, as you grow up, she was an entrepreneur. She started one business after the other, and while working as a waitress, we counted every quarter and nickel and dime that she brought in, because that paid for the groceries. But what I learned was that uh, you know every time you failed, you learned something, and then there was another day. The world didn't come to an end.
Hmm.
And the other thing that I did learn from my mother was that her relationships were never broken, despite her failures, because she always made good on her promise to pay people back.
Hmm.
And I carry that with me, in my business and everything that I do. I think that's important.
Hmm. Now, I'm going to show you a picture over here. I'd like for you to tell me who this is, right there in the middle with the lei. Who is that?
Oh my gosh, that looks like Mrs. Hasekawa from sixth grade teacher.
Yes, Mrs.
Wow.
Tell me about
Wow.
tell me about Mrs. Hasegawa.
Oh gosh. So, in your life, there are moments when you feel that you've discovered yourself. And I was a young immigrant in those days. Back in 1976, we came here in August of 1976, and I turned 10 in November. So went to Lilio Kalani Elementary. Then we soon moved to Wilson Elementary School, and she was my sixth grade teacher. But given that I didn't speak English very well, and my first day in school, everybody had to recite the I pledge allegiance, and I didn't even speak the language, and I didn't know what pledge of allegiance was, and it got laughed at, and so what I learned was to be quiet and try to hide, and not say
Mm.
one word. And there was one assignment was about a poetry, and I wrote something about Maile. And I say Maile, it's so pretty, and then I just wrote something that just came to my mind that I could write and spell. But what she did in the class was she read this poem aloud, and she said it was one of the best ones in the classroom. And when she read it, she corrected my grammar errors while she was reading aloud. And after she was done, everybody clapped, and she said this was written by, and my name at that time was Hyun Hee Camp. So it was written by Hyun Hee. And everybody looked and said, no way, that FOB girl back there who can't speak English. And what that made me realize, in the beginning of sixth grade, because fifth grade was a total failure. Um,
Ah,
Beginning of sixth grade it made people think that I was a smart girl. It made me think that I had a voice. It was important that people would look at me with respect in some way. And that was the most amazing experience that I had. That one teacher, she set the tone for the rest of the year, and she set me up for
wow.
success. That I in
Wow.
and well, I feel really choked up, because when you think about the generations right now, I'm feeling choked up because she had so much to do with my desire to run for president for class when I was seventh grade.
Oh, wow.
She made me feel like I had a voice.
Ah,
So Mrs. Hasegawa was one of the most wonderful teachers that I've had. She wasn't
ah.
the touchy-feely teacher, by the way.
Oh
She
yeah.
was feared by everyone. She was shipwrecked. Everybody was afraid of her. I was afraid of her.
Yeah.
But when I think back in my life of the people who made a difference, that woman made a difference for me.
Uh, she passed away in 2020, I believe, at 91 years of age, and well respected. I mean, I was looking at all of her accolades. What an amazing educator. She did so many things in the community. Just really beautiful. Yeah. So along the way, there are folks that just kind of made some impressions on your heart and your mind. Another was the gentleman from RK Development, which was Rex Kurosaki.
Yep.
Kurosari, yeah.
Yes.
How did Rex impress? What did he say or do that impressed you, that stayed with you?
My father died when I was 10 years old, so I didn't have a father figure. I ran away from home when I was 15 because
Oh,
I was with my mother all the time, but I went to school every day because, that's what happens when you have good upbringing, that education is important and all that. So I never
mm,
missed a day of school, but I worked and I paid my rent, $175 a month. Um,
oh,
and and then I went back home because I needed to go to college. And so when was 16 and a half, I went back home a year after I ran away from home. And I got a job. I went to the KCC um, and I got a job. And my first full time job was Rex Kawasaki's office as a Girl Friday. And all my friends who graduated from high school. So I graduated a year earlier and I attended KCC. And all my friends were starting to graduate high school and was going to mainland colleges, and doing things that I thought because I thought I was so smart that I would be doing. And so I would cry every time I heard news about my friends going to college.
uh,
That I was working and going to KCC at night. And I had to work because I had to help pay for my mom's mortgage and things. And so I mean, everything was good. But what I remember is Mr. Kawasaki telling me, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Well, because the whole world's going by, and I'm here." And I had lied to him about my age, by the way. I told him I was 18, I was 16, and I was working for him. And I'm sure he must have known. But he told me, everybody has their story. And he said, you just got to pull yourself up and make today the first day of your rest of your life. Because if you think about how everybody else is doing better than you, then there's always going to be someone better than you. Even
hmm,
billionaires have somebody better than them. You cannot compare yourself to other people. You can only compare yourself to what you're able to do, what you can control. He said, just think of this. Even the president wears his pants one leg at a time. Everybody's the same when it comes to it. So when he told me that, and then he told me to, just keep going to school. And he told me to get a 4 year college education, not a 2 year associate's degree. And he asked me to consider that because it doesn't matter how long it takes. If you do, then you won't feel less than the others.
hmm.
Well, it took 10 and a half years to graduate my 4 year degree while going to school. But I remember what he said to me, everybody wears their pants one leg at a time.
Yes.
And everybody's the same. And that if you compare yourself to others, there will always be someone richer than you are, better looking than you are, taller than you are, everything. You'll never be happy. You find your happiness by comparing yourself to what you're able to do. I mean, these are just nuggets that I got
Yeah.
when I was 16 years old. And
Yeah.
I soaked that all up. It made me feel better. And I focused on what I can do. And that was
Hmm.
important.
By the way, shout out to Kalani High School, Kalani Falcons. Hey.
So I went to Hawaii. Did you attend high school too?
No, I went to Roosevelt, but I'm familiar. I've had cousins and family, that went to Kalani. So yeah, uh, and these people like Mrs. Hasegawa and RK Development, Rex and so forth. They made some early strong impressions on your heart, yeah, that you still carry with you today, as inspiration, and you share with others too. Um, so you decided, and it was a conscious choice to go in a direction when you started to work for some development companies. Was it Alexander and Baldwin, right? And
Yeah, and
yeah,
Alexander.
and you saw the inner workings of all of that, and so now you're coming up on about 25 years of Avalon,
Mhm.
uh, and the amazing work that you've done as a CEO, a president of the Avalon Group, real estate development, property management, and you this is the driving force behind Avalon is you. And how did this work for you? And this is a male dominated industry, if you will, or business, across globally. And here you are. A Korean immigrant, did not go to Stanford or Harvard, or and now you're dealing in the boardroom with these kinds of people. What's your mindset as you came into this industry and dealing with these kind of folks?
Um, all of it. Thank you very much. It wasn't easy. And I won't tell people who want to start out in what I do to say that this is an easy career. Real estate development is a career that chose me because it was my very first job with RK Development. And I realized that when you touch land, especially in Hawaii, you're touching many aspects of people's lives. And I learned from him as I worked for him for 5 years that you can really help people. I remember that he was a developer. He developed land to help mostly Hawaiian families who were going to lose their land because they couldn't pay property taxes, and he helped subdivide that land to allow them to sell pieces of it to pay their taxes so they can keep their land, and
Hmm.
also to subdivide them so that they can pass on their generational wealth to their family, their kids. And he did that year after year, and I really enjoyed working on those aspects because you're solving problems, and also creating housing. So and when we did sell homes, in those days when I started, the interest rates were like 18%. So now
Hmm.
people say interest rates are so high, but interest rates are pretty high, and people couldn't get mortgages. And he did agreements of sale, and my job was to book those income, amortize the loan, and things like that at age 16 and 17, and do escrow work. But I saw how important that work was, and I enjoyed what I was doing. I felt the land use in Hawaii was something that needed to be done by people who understood the land. So I was discovered by Castle and Cook when they got their zoning in Mililani Mauka, building homes on pineapple land. So I was one of the three project managers that they were hiring. I hadn't quite graduated from college yet, but Mr. Kawasaki told me that go to Castle and Cook, think of that as your master's degree, and I'm happy for you. And
Wow.
so I worked at Castle for 5 years in hopes that I would learn enough and and start my own company to do what Mr. Kawasaki had done. But I was discovered in my end of my fifth year. A and B asked me to come. Alexander and Baldwin asked me to come work for them, and Cass and Cook was mostly building housing on pineapple land. Alexander and Baldwin was mostly building commercial properties on Maui and Kauai, and looking for land to buy on Oahu because they had sugar lands. And it took so long to entitle, like 20, 30 years, that
Hmm.
it was difficult for them to show a profit for their shareholders, and it's a public company. So I worked for them and became vice president. And I decided when I did become vice president and working with all these Harvard and MBAs and Stanford MBAs that I was just as smart as they were, that I could maybe finally go out on my own. So I started my company back in 1999, 25 years ago. What do you do when you don't have land to develop, or nor have land, cash and
Resources,
capital?
yeah, yeah.
You don't have resources, but you have all this knowledge. So I sold my knowledge as a consultant, and really
Ah,
helped people make decisions on land. And that became very successful, and used that as the cash basis to build, buy land and develop projects. And over the 25 years, It took me about 3.5 years to finally have enough money to start buying land, and generating investors. So my investors initially would give, I would find investors for 20, $30,000 each person, get 10 of them together and buy land. But now, I have investors at a $2 million minimum threshold. And
Wow.
so we gather their land, buy properties that are going to be good for the community, in my opinion, filling the gaps, and then a good return for our investors who are waiting and believing in me. And
Hmm.
so they weren't always successful, but I remember in 2008 during financial crisis, we couldn't pay back all the investors after we paid off the loan. But what I did was I really worked hard, and over the 10 years, paid them for all their money that they invested plus 9% for every year that they
Wow.
were outstanding. It took some of them, it took them 10 years. And when I paid off everything, some of them cried and they called me and said, I never thought you would pay me back, because those were actually equity at risk investments.
Mm.
You promised what you believed. And I remember thinking that that made me really proud. And now, we have investors who are investing $100 million, $50 million,
Wow.
$20 million. But I always think of them like how I think of my friends and family kind of investors, people who knew me personally and
Hmm.
invested their retirement accounts. So, and what I did was I went out to West Oahu, because there are a lot of homes being built, right? There are a lot of West Oahu, so Kapolei, Eva, in those areas, Waipahu. These are areas where you could find homes still affordable for people to buy.
Hmm.
And I decided that instead of building homes and fighting with the D.R. Hortons or Castle and Cooks or Gentrys or of the world, that I would build places of excellence, places that added quality of life in these bedroom communities so that they could become places of employment. So we built industrial parks. I was able to build 300 acres of industrial parks,
Wow.
and so Kapolei, Eva, Waipahu, Milltown, Waikele. So we built over 300 acres. Then we built shopping centers and built 5 schools. We built
Ah.
3 charter schools,
Hmm.
two preschools, excuse me, 2 charter schools, 2 preschools, and a ballet studio. Built their own building for them. So did all of that in our 19 years of investment there. And then we went to Hawaii Kai, and Hawaii Kai has the highest ratio of home ownership because people could buy. And so these are good communities because you don't have a lot of transient population. So they're very civic minded. They protect what they got. That means that no new projects come on to Hawaii Kai very easily. And we were able to deliver 269 rental housing. Because when you have high levels of home occupancy or home ownership there, conversely, what it means is people who can't afford to buy there, they can't
Ah.
live
Yeah.
there, right? They don't have rental opportunities.
Hmm.
And you have great schools because a lot of homeowners, they sunk their roots down, and they want to make sure that they go to schools, and you populate all the homeowners, PTAs involved. And so schools are, they demand more of their students, so they have great schools. And I felt that people needed opportunities to live there. So we built rental housing that where 4 other projects failed, we were able to build rental housing. Then I split the housing into two because the loan came due. So we were able to split that and convert them into condominiums. And I gave the tenants 2 months, excuse me, 2 years of their rent towards their down payment so they could buy their first home. And a lot of those people were policemen, teachers, nurses. So we were able to convert it, $180 million project, and we were able to convert it. So we still keep 83 of those homes in affordable rentals for those making less than median housing. And the rest of it are owned by first-time homeowners. I won Developer of the Year for that by the Building Industry Association, by the National Industry Association of office developers, basically, and by everyone, just GCA, because they thought I did something that no one was able to do, and that particular property, 4 projects had failed before me. So we feel pretty proud about that.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And, so that was $180 million project. So it was a pretty large project.
Yeah.
Uh, this year, we're doing six projects. We're completing our industrial parks in Eva and in Kapolei, as well as building one more school. We just finished the Hawaii Pacific University. Their science hall for their 5,000 students. They were out in the windward side and they were busing kids from Aloha Tower, where they're located, all the way to Hawaii Loa campus and back and forth. What we did was we brought them back to Honolulu by building them on 4th Street Mall, their own building. So I spent $26 million building them a hall, and we signed a 20-year lease with them. And then I bought Walmart building, the one that used to be Macy's, or before that, for those of you old timers, might be Liberty House.
Yeah.
So we bought the Liberty House building with its parking stalls, 480 parking stalls, and 87,000 square feet. Yeah, there you are. So
Yeah.
we're now going to convert that. That's 87,000 square feet of store space. That's,
Wow.
think about it, an acre is 43,000 square feet, right? So 87,000 square feet is like 2 acres. So what
Wow.
we're going to do is do an indoor air conditioned pickleball park. And yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do restaurants and bars that surround the outside. And indoor is going to be, because pickleball, they get kicked out of every neighborhood because they're so noisy. That you can't do it at nighttime when you're not working because no one wants to hear the noise, tick tack, right? But we thought it would be great to have an air conditioned indoor where you can play any time of the day. So we're in the middle of constructing that right now. Um,
Wow.
and then
Exciting.
Davies Pacific Center. Theo Davies had developed that. It was one of the first Class A office buildings. We bought it for $96 million last year. We're going to be spending $280 million converting that into other uses, hotels and condos and apartments. And so we're right now gearing up to buy a total of three office buildings. A couple of them have not yet been announced. And when we buy all of those three buildings, we're going to convert them into areas where you can have long term, because Airbnbs are kind of being phased out of Honolulu, right? Because they're
Yeah.
kicking people out of their homes. So we
Hmm.
may be long term hotel rooms where you can have kitchens and you don't push people out of their home or neighborhoods. We may be doing rental housing and a lot of other things, condominiums and things of that nature. So we're all in downtown. We think that downtown is the next future where there'll be thriving opportunities for people to come back, and where offices are vacating now will become replaced with homes, hotels, and other uses like schools.
That's amazing. We're going to take a break right now. And we're talking, if you just joined us, we're talking with, excuse me, Christine Camp. Such an amazing story of her life and her journey as now being CEO, president of Avalon Group, real estate development, property management. And when we come back, Christine, let's talk a little bit about your consulting with Catholic Charities for affordable senior housing in 4th Street Mall. And also creating these units for rentals for seniors there. But we're going to take a little break right now. We'll be right back with the Aloha Friday show. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Next week, a friend of mine, Frank B. Shaner, who lives on Maui, he calls himself a pusher of paint. He's an artist, a painter, a photographer, and just a fun guy. So join us for next week, Friday, for our Aloha Friday show. Christine Cam, CEO, President, Avalon Group. She has been Developer of the Year, Woman Leader of the Year, Young Community Leader of the Year. How do you do it all? Is my question. And you must have a trampoline every morning that you're bonded with this high energy. Do that. Are you able to find a balance in time with Ethan, in a family, your mom, your sisters, and yet you're doing all of this with Avalon and the properties? How are you able to find balance at all, or what's the level for you?
Something's got to give. You can't do it all. And then I'm going to tell this to every woman who want to do it all, and even for men. You can. You have to balance what is most important to you, and evaluate that. So for me, very important that what I do, it's not work. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to spend the time that I do. Right? I mean, like, work can't be grueling. It's if even though not everything is easy, it has to be fun, has to be enjoyable. And for me, I love what I do. I love the results that what we make. We make an impact in what in the communities. But where it gives is my housework. Like my son has two dressers full of clothes because I don't often do my laundry. I probably do it once every 3 weeks or once a month. So everybody has a lot of clothes. um, I have cleaning ladies. I have yard men. I have handyman. I basically have to get a lot of help from my sisters and my when my mother was able. My mother, I took help whoever was offering it, whoever I could get to help in the housework, because I had to focus on the quality of life that I wanted to have for myself, which meant some of the things I couldn't do it right. I'm going to tell you, I can't cook very well. I used to, but we eat out more often than not. But I've never missed my son's events.
uh,
I've
you know,
never missed a game.
I know
Um, you know,
it sounds cliche, but it does take a village. Yeah, it does take a village of folks to make that happen. Yeah, of course. Let's see. C. Honda had just commented that you had worked with so many wonderful, iconic Hawaiian companies. When you said A and B, Alexander and Baldwin and the Castle and Cook, and all of these are some of the heavy hitter development and land. Based companies there in the islands, and you're kind of like a little upstart that came along. Who's this Avalon development coming along, and there's a wahine in the driver's seat. Did you ever feel intimidated? I mean, you walk into the boardroom and you're representing, yourself, or even with Avalon, and you got some of the so-called big boys in the room. What was that like for you?
well, I guess because I started very early on, you know, um, real estate means you have to whole male male with a whole lot of people, ask for a lot of favors from a lot of different people, deal with construction industry. So in the beginning, when I started, people just assumed that I was a sales lady or the interior designer, and I had to make sure that my voice was heard. So even like tying up my hair and having very understated jewelry was one that's learned, because I realized that when I have beautiful flowing hair with a lot of jewelry, like how I would want to dress in the beginning, um, they got distracted by that message. And so
Hmm.
I learned how to be more subdued for purposes of being making sure that my voice was heard. Now I'm too
Ah.
old now, so nobody cares, and my voice is heard now over anything else. But when I was younger, it's not just for women, but it's even for people who are younger, who have the seriousness that they want to put into their work. Sometimes it's discounted. So, but being a woman in this industry was not easy. But I let things roll off, and made sure that it didn't get in the way of the work or the message. Now, not everybody might agree with me in how I did my work, But I didn't sweat the small things. I didn't feel that if someone disrespected me, I took it as that it was their concern, not mine. I knew who I was. And when you have a good solid basis for what you're about to do and that the work is more important than anything else, all that stuff became secondary to me. But it doesn't mean that people didn't treat me badly. It doesn't mean that I didn't cry or feel intimidated. One
Hmm.
of the key tricks that I used to be when I would sit at a board table is to pump the chair up so that I was always at the same height. 'Cause, I'm 5'2", 5 feet 2 inches, and I was under 100 pounds usually, and dealing with all these people making major decisions.
Yeah.
And so I learned to pump up my chair, so that I'm at eye level with everyone. I learned to stop talking with my hand because oftentimes women do that, and so subdue.
Hmm.
So those little things help, but most importantly, you just have to believe in yourself. Because then
Ah.
all the other things that people say about you, you'll show. My focus is just show them what you're about. Just show them what you're trying to achieve. Once these
Mhm.
achievements are shown for the mutual benefit, you earn that respect. It may take a lot longer than some people. It may never be for some people, but that's okay. In life, we're not going to win them all.
Those are the three words that I just made a note over here. Um, it's a believe in yourself. That's the takeaway as you and I are talking. That's the from all the way from Mrs. Hasegawa, all the way to RK Development, your mentor there. Believe in yourself. And by the way, C Honda says, "Hey, eating out, no shame. You're pretty busy." Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And K is saying, not subdued, noble, elegance.
Wow.
Ooh,
Thank you very much.
nicely.
Thank you.
Ay, kamsamidan. Thank you, Kay. That's nice. Yes, yes,
That's very
yes.
nice.
So now something that is happening in downtown with the Catholic Charities for Hawaii. Um, Tell us about that on 4th Street Mall.
Yes. Very proud to have done pro bono work. Pro bono is like, basically not expecting to get paid. But the 4th Street Mall, so our interest in downtown started with trying to help the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Diocese, trying to build housing for their aging priests. And then they had a property next to them that was boarded up because it was unsafe. It was a two-story building right next to the Roman Catholic Church on 4th Street Mall. And so we were able to work with Catholic Charities of Hawaii, which is a entity affiliated with the Roman Catholic Church, but it's a nonprofit that builds housing or is a nonprofit that supports and sponsors new housing projects. And so we work with them to design and get entitlements and all the permits necessary to build a senior housing project, along with providing church spaces. So it's a 15-story building on really basically 7,000 square foot of land.
Wow.
70-story building where you have 67 units for those making, below median income, like 30 to 60% of median income. So the rent would be $500 to $900 a month, or
So
$200 to $900 a month. So we were able to get it done, but they're still waiting for the tax credits. So we got the design and the development part of it done. Now the construction has to start.
So, Christine, tell me, you drive your car and you park. Do you walk these areas and you look and you go, what's? I can just picture, you go downtown and maybe you have some pho downtown in Chinatown, maybe, or you go to a noodle shop and have something to eat. And as you're walking, you walk down the block and you look at some of these buildings. And do you often say, "Oh my goodness, What story does this building have to tell me, and how can I be part of the new story of this building?"
What motivates me is the need. So in
Ah,
this case, the priests were aging out. They wanted to be close to the church, right? And the church had a property that they couldn't use, and it was basically condemned. They had boarded it up, and no one was allowed to be in the building. What do you do to make that work?
Hmm.
Why not build housing? Then all the technical expertise of, like, what's the height and what's the setback and volume, that's where I spend time crunching the numbers to see if it works. Just like,
Wow.
we just got 11.5 acre St. Francis School in Manoan, right next to the University of Hawaii. They were trying to sell it to the University of Hawaii, but they couldn't get enough money to retire all the nuns. It was the only asset they had in all of their systems. The nuns are not treated the same as the priests, by the way. They're,
Hmm.
they're like left on their own devices. And
Oh,
the nuns,
really?
the actuarial studies show that these nuns who are aging out, most of them were in their 80s, had no, they had this property and then they had no place to go, and they needed to be in retirement communities like assisted care and nursing homes. And so they needed a certain dollar amount, but the UH wouldn't or couldn't pay them that what they needed. So I came in and told them, look, I'll buy it from you. And so I gave them what they needed, the actuarial studies. It wasn't based on market, it was based on, I think the University of Hawaii wanted to buy from them for $16 million. The actuarial study said that they needed $24 million. So I paid them what they needed, took it on, and looked at what do I do in this community. So I tried to first sell it to the schools, but the schools just couldn't make it work because the buildings were just so dilapidated.
Mm.
It was unsafe for children to be in. So we're going to demolish it and build 93 homes. And
Wow.
but what I feel good about is the fact that we were able to retire those nuns. Most of them are now in assisted care or nursing homes now.
My goodness. My goodness. Here, C is saying, what an interesting development. Lower income housing is so needed. That is so true. And while we're talking about that, something that we also noted here, and every time I go back home, uh, homelessness continues to be a big issue right there in the islands, and you are very much aware of that. And how have you addressed that, and what's where are you at with that? Thinking that.
So there are people who specialize in tax credits, right? They can't build unless there's tax credits available to do rental housing. That I provide free services to nonprofits to make that happen. But for me, I do for-profit projects where we would be able to meet. We won't be taking out away tax credits or government dollars. So we do projects that are not government subsidized, and
Ah.
then we also do projects that pay into the tax system. Because right now there's a lot of people wanting low-income housing.
Hmm.
Low-income housing means that you use government tax dollars. Low income housing also means that they don't pay tax. You have
Hmm.
too many of that,
Yeah.
your counties are going to go bankrupt. If you're taking on a shopping center that's paying taxes and you're going to make that into low income housing or government subsidized housing,
Hmm.
then they pay the tax. Rental housing for people who make less than median income, that's very much needed. But for every project that you build, you got to build a for-profit housing project to pay the taxes. So I felt that I need to focus on that area and help the nonprofits do their development aspects. And so we do that work for free while we work on um, solving the housing crisis. Because I see too often times people forego their pay raises or promotions. So I operate a lot of low income housing projects. I do the property management side. I own also low income housing projects because we build them for our development needs. And then we have these women that are just so amazing. They're single moms, they take care of their kids, they work really hard. And so they're in this low income housing rental project. But they forego so we have to certify them every year. Some women say, oh, I got promoted and am I going to get kicked out? And unfortunately, I do have to tell them, you got 6 months, you have to move out. So they say, oh no, my kids are in the best school district that I can afford in this area. I cannot move out of here, and I can't afford to. Even if with the promotion that I got, I'm in management. Even with that $5,000 per year more in pay, I can never afford another place, and so I'm going to say no to that promotion. Can you imagine how
Hmm.
that feels?
Yeah.
And I see that day in day out.
Hmm.
So I would like to help them buy their home because I know what it was like for my mom when she became from a tenant to buying something on an agreement of sale. to buying a leasehold property to buying that fee simple land ownership. I felt that we were finally middle class. Even though we were low income middle class, we were finally middle class, and no one would kick us out. I would
Hmm.
love that for those families. So we're building, you know, entry home prices if we can, and if we can't, we try to build homes that have a lockout, like a kitchen in a bedroom, so they can rent that out, so they can help pay the mortgage and be a landlord. You
Hmm.
buy your home, make one of the units rented if you cannot afford to live in a three-bedroom house. But I'm going to give you that opportunity so that you can become a homeowner. So we're building homes like that now. In the meantime, we do free work for Hale Kipa. Hale Kipa is a place for people who teenagers who aged out of foster homes and they become
Okay.
homeless.
Yeah.
So we helped them build for free, meaning we gave the expertise and we became the construction managers and the development managers while charging them a cost so they could get it built. So we built Halekipa homes for them. We did same thing for Institute for Human Services, the IHS homeless shelter. A lot of people are too crazy to come to a shelter. Like they have
Yeah.
mental issues, right? They need to be stabilized.
Hmm.
Some are too affected, like they have fleas and they have bed bugs and things, and it affects them in the shelter system. So we help build a triage center for 25 beds where you can debug them, you can clean them up, you can medicate them to
Hmm.
stabilize them so they can go into shelters or go into temporary housing. So we just finished building that during the pandemic. So we're going to do more of that work while we do the for profit work.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Beautiful. So, a mutual friend, Floyd Takeuchi, who we met when we talked with Pat Saiki a couple of weeks ago, um, he asked a question. He says, will downtown Honolulu ever fully recover from pre pandemic levels? What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm betting my future on that.
Mm.
We are going to be making about $1 billion of investment in downtown. But
Wow.
aside from us, there are other investors who are coming in. So what Floyd means is that like elsewhere in downtowns, office people don't need office anymore, right? Like look at this technology. You and I are doing business where we're talking to each other. You can do business with anybody with just a computer, and you
Hmm.
don't have to be in an office. But Hawaii is a little bit different. What I'm finding, I own the Davies Pacific Center, and we're buying a couple of other buildings. People don't want to be out of downtown. The decision makers still feel that they need to be in downtown because the Coconut Wireless on Bishop Street is important to be part of that business aspect of
Yeah.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
And being downtown is that important. So they want some presence, but they may not want a whole floor of office building anymore. They might need maybe a quarter of that.
Hmm.
So what do you do with the empty hollowing out of downtown, where people are shrinking their footprint? People are no longer coming in on an everyday basis. What I believe is you redevelop it and you reimagine downtown. The reimagination of downtown is happening. It didn't start this year, it didn't start last year. It actually started in 2020 during the pandemic. Quietly, people were buying properties and changing them into different things. So you have, Douglas Emmett, who owns the Pacific Tower, Pauahi Tower, the Bishop Place. It used to be First Hawaiian Tower, and they own Harbor Court. They have converted the former First Hawaiian Tower, which is now called Bishop Place. They're converting that into 500 homes,
Wow.
apartments. They're about 400 units in. They got another 100 to go. Um, Dwayne Kurisu, who owns Honolulu Business Magazine, Hawaii Business Magazine, who owns the part of the Giants, he owns ESPN Hawaii, that real estate mogul. He owns 9 properties in downtown Honolulu,
Wow.
and he did it during the pandemic very quietly. And he's been converting that into commercial centers. Marukame Udon is here from Waikiki. When you go to Waikiki, there's that long line people buying udon.
Right.
They're now in downtown. And
Oh, wow.
Maximo is here. He's going to be bringing a senior center. He's going to bring all. Keomoku is getting redeveloped into high rises. What happened to all those Korean tenants? What happened to all
Yeah.
the international tenants, the Vietnamese shops and Chinese shops and all that. They're all looking for space. Dwayne is making space for them, and Dwayne and his son Robert are making space for them in those 9 buildings that they bought in downtown. We own 6 buildings in downtown, and we're about to own 2 more, so we'll own 8 buildings. So Douglas Emmett owns 4, we own 6. He owns 9. We're spending money, and then the rail from the airport, we are the second to the last rail stop. The last stop is going to be right in front of the courthouse in Akako.
Mm-hmm.
So AC Marriott Hotel opened. They bought it during the pandemic. They fixed it during the pandemic, converted the old International Bank building, which has the coin shop, and it was Hill College, I think was what it was. It's an old building. They turned it into 117-room AC Marriott Hotel. Absolutely beautiful, absolutely popular. That has turned into a bidding war for other hotels to bring more hotels in downtown. So Hilton,
Interesting.
Hyatt, more Marriotts will be coming into downtown Honolulu.
Amazing.
And the rail is going to stop right here, right in front of downtown.
Amazing, amazing. There is Avalon right there in the midst of it all. That's a beautiful thing. Here's Nate Jones. He goes, "Aloha, Christine. Mahalo again for taking time to appear on the show." Nate Jones is our production assistant, and I call him our talent wrangler here. He does such a great job. Thank you, Nate. He says, "Castle and Cook, Alexander and Baldwin were 2 of Hawaii's big 5 companies. I read an article in Hawaii Business Magazine about you and 4 other women changing the face of real estate development in Hawaii. Do you often cross paths with some of these other developers like Laura Kodama?"
Thank you for that question, Nate. Absolutely. So there's actually more than 5 women, but the 5 women happen to be featured. So, but Laura Kodama and I started. I think she started a year after me at Castle and Cook, and she's there, and she was very instrumental in getting Koa Ridge rezoned and the development planning. And she's actually a very good friend of mine. So
Nice.
but there are a few of us in development, so we actually get together once a year, and during Christmas times, exchange gifts, and we're very good friends.
Very nice. Nate says, "When I was back home in Kaneohe earlier this week, I saw commercials about your project Kokua Hale that Floyd mentioned, and so those are being letting folks know what's going on there on those development areas." My goodness, what a fascinating story! It's I'm looking at some of the things we talked about, and I love it where you said again, encouraging women to embrace their failures. Every lesson is painful, and through pain, you learn the best. If you're not failing, you're not learning. If you're not failing, you're not trying. So I would like to see more women try, and that is your wonderful example of that. One of the things here is we are so hard of ourselves, but we can still be happy and fulfilled for yourself and many others, even though you're a career mom. There's no shame in it. I'm very proud of what we have done, and that is wonderful. That's amazing. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, Christine. When I drive through downtown Honolulu, I'm going to be looking at these buildings and thinking about you and go, "That's an Avalon. That's Avalon's building. That's Christine."
We'll soon be opening up our indoor pickleball court center sometime in
Ooh.
December or January. Hopefully you'll come by. Drop my
Ooh. It's you said it's air conditioned?
air-conditioned indoor court. We should have about 15 courts.
Oh my God. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Wonderful. Christine, it's been an absolute pleasure spending time with you. Thank you so much for being part of our Aloha Friday show here today. Please give our aloha to your mom and to your family, to Ethan as well. And hopefully we'll get a chance to chat again sometime soon. Have a great rest of your day, Christine. Mahalo. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great, blessed day, and we will see you soon on the next Aloha Friday show. Aloha, everybody.